Alright guys, so what I'm working on here is a 49cc quad bike for kids. Now this is for a friend of mine, and what he's asked me to do is make this into a electric start. So instead of using this pull start that's on this side here to start the engine, he wants it to start like a car. So when you press the button, or if you turn the key, it'll engage the starter and start it via a battery. So what I have, so I've got a head start on this, and what I've gone ahead and bought is obviously a SLA battery, which is of this spec here, so 12 volt 8 ampere, and then obviously I've gone ahead and removed this gear reduction that goes over here. Okay, and then I went and bought this starter from AliExpress. So I'll add this into the link. So the clutch doesn't come with it. Clutch is what I took from this engine, and I placed it on here. And then I went to JCar, I went and bought this charger, and I also bought, I'll just show you, a waterproof, weatherproof push button switch to engage the starter, and I also bought this here for charging the battery. So this will obviously get mounted somewhere on the quad bike. And I went and also bought some long bolts that will go on this here. So because, so what initially, how it's set was like that. Yeah, so what I've done is I've moved, so the engine mounts used to be here, so engine used to be mounted onto this point here. So what I've done is, so when this sat here, this was out here, right? So when you put this on, without moving the engine back, it will sit there, and then when you put this on, so it will sit out into the footwell here, so there's not enough space to put your foot on here. So what I've done is I've moved the engine back that way, and I've moved the mounts there. They are pre-drilled, so this model came with the pre-drilled mounts, and then I've moved it back into the pre-drilled mounts, and then this one will sit here, and then this will sit on top of it like that. The bolts that come with the engine are not the correct length, so what you need to go and get is some proper bolts like this. I'll put this in the description, what size you need, and then mount this up. In doing that, I also went and bought thread locker, so medium strength. I had a relay, so this one's available from JCar as well, which is a inbuilt fuse as well. And I will show you the wiring process. I have some of my old wiring that I'm going to use from an HID kit, which I don't need anymore, and I will wire this up. I'll show you the diagram, and then we'll go from there. So to move the engine back, obviously these sit over here. To move it back, it will move back nicely, but it will sit on an angle. So therefore what you need to do is, I'll try and show you, there's a bolt right there. Okay, so this exhaust sits on this side of the quad, so on the left hand side. So what you have to do is just undo that bolt and move this whole exhaust to this side, on this side of the mount. So all you have to do is just move this mount on the other side, and then that will make sure the engine is sitting straight, so it's not crooked or on an angle. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll put the starter on, and then I will show you the wiring process. Yeah, and then we'll mount this up and we'll see how we go. Okay, so that's pretty much the starter there, that's mounted. This is the lead that goes to the battery. So that's pretty much done. Now what I'm thinking is to mount the battery, which I have thought of it going there. So it will stay in between those. I'll have to build a bracket so it's secured. And then I have this switch, which I'm going to go and position here. So I'll have to drill it out and position that there. And then I have a relay as well, a fused relay. This one can be found at JCar as well. And this one I am thinking of putting right over here, but reason is that because there's a cover that goes on top of it, it's all going to be secured, no water can get to it and so forth. So once I get my locations, I will drill out what I need, and then I will start with my wiring. Obviously I'll show you the diagrams of how to wire this, so using the negative trigger from the switch to change it over for this relay to click to a positive. So I'll show you how to do all of that. Yeah, so let me mount all my switches, relay and battery, and then I'll come back. Okay, so we've got the switch mounted neatly here, so it's just a push in switch, and then we've got the wires coming out here. Now this will just go chassis ground, and then the other one will come to the relay. So the way this relay works is I'm going to use a negative trigger to change it over to a positive trigger, because I don't want it going straight from here to the starter motor, because it will just take up too much amps and it just might just be unsafe. So I'd rather do it safely through this relay. And the way I'm going to do this is, obviously I'll show you the diagram of how it's to be wired. 86 and 30 will go to power, so constant power from the battery, and then 85 is your trigger, so trigger from the switch here, and then your 87 is your output to the starter motor, which is this white wire here. So I'll show you the block diagram to how to wire this up properly, and this will just get mounted right here, fused, and we'll go ahead with that. Okay, so we have our switch mounted here, we have our relay here, it's all wired up, and I have my jump pack plugged up just for temporary. The SLA battery is flat, so it's on charge at the moment. So for testing purposes, I have removed the spark lead, so that's, let me just get to it, yep, so that's disconnected, so there's nothing plugged up onto the spark plug, so because I don't want it starting right now, I just want to see if the engine is cranking. So let's go and try that out. So we have our jump pack plugged up, and let's press the button. Okay, great. Okay, you can see that. So it is cranking, and now I'll put everything back together, tidy it all up. I still have to do the charging socket for the battery, and then we can have a look from there. Okay, so now I'm building the charging socket. So there's the socket in there, and the way I'm going to do this is on the positive lead I've got a diode, so diode is facing the battery, so this end of the diode will go towards the battery. The reason I've done it like that is so because this is mounted outside on the shell, I don't want any current or voltage going in the reverse direction when this is not charging. So when the charger is plugged in, the current will only flow one way, this way, but when it's not plugged in, I don't want the battery to push current that way. So that's the reason for the diode there. So I'm just going to add a little wire to this, and then I'll mount this onto the battery. Okay, so here we are up to so we've wired in. So I've ditched the idea of using the relay, which is over here. So I'm not going to use this simply because I found this solenoid online, and I can use this to my better advantage. Battery is relocated up here, so instead of it being mounted in there, I mounted it up here. It's just a bit better location. I built some mounts for it. I used this original mount that comes with the quad, and then I built some smaller mounts here. and then I use some straps up here that secures this battery in, so it's not going anywhere. As for the wiring, so I have my positive and my negative here. This lead here goes to the charging port. There's a diode that's in here that goes to the positive, so it's only a one-way feed if it's charging. I have two fuses, so one big 40 amp fuse that goes to the solenoid here, and then I have a smaller fuse here which is a 15 amp that goes from the positive side all the way up to this switch, and then from there back to this fuse, and then out to this solenoid here, so that's where it links up to. So what I'm going to do now is I have this cover that sits here, and everything's, all the electronics is hidden. I have mounted a little key switch here, and then what's going to happen now is from this switch, this lead here, is I am going to tap it into this section here just before the fuse. So what happens is when you turn the key on, it will allow continuity to go through this way, and then when the key is off, obviously there's a break in the circuit. So that's what I'm up to now. To wire all of this up, it's pretty simple. I will put the block diagram on how I did this. I'll draw up a little diagram and I'll show you guys how to do this. So it's pretty simple. It comes from the positive lead to one side of the solenoid, and then this is the starter line here. So battery line fused, and then here, and then this little junction here goes to the switch, and then output from the switch to the fuse, and then back to the solenoid to energize it. This two here just goes from the other side. There's two wires on this output side of the solenoid. One's a green yellow, that one just goes to straight ground, and the other one is just battery ground. So let me go ahead and mount the switch, and then I'll show you guys the finished product. Okay, so we have it all set up now. Let's see if we can get it to start. So what I have is a switch here. Turn that on. We have our switch over here. Let's give that a try. Well, there you go guys, so that's how it's done. It is possible to put a starter on one of these motors, the 49cc quad bikes. So there's the starter motor right there. The wiring comes across, everything is well hidden underneath there with the battery mounted there. I have a charging socket right here, and the key is there. So once you turn the key off, this switch becomes disengaged. Okay, so once you turn that on and then you press that, okay, there you go. So that's how it's done. Hopefully this has helped somebody out there, and thank you for watching.